This is the Rabbi Podcast. Yeah.
Hello to everybody out there, and welcome to yet another episode of the Rabbis Podcast. Not only another episode, this is episode 103, which I'm sure that the one and only cohort, Rabbi Spiro, will tell us what the significance of the number 103 is. But first of all, I have to introduce myself. I am Rabbi Pinchas Landis, and I'm one of the hosts of the Rabbis Podcast. I'm here with the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, the Guinness Book of World Records holder for the longest fingernails, or at least wannabe longest fingernails, none other than Rabbi Gamliel Nassan Halevi Spiro. Rabbi Spiro, how are you doing today?
I'm great, working on my fingernails.
Yeah, one day you'll get there. It took that guy about 137 years to get there. So hopefully, with time, with progress, if you have Verichas Yamim, it'll get there. But I'm just in Baruch Hashem, a great mood. Everything's moving along. Spring is in the air, at least for the day here in Cleveland. It's going back down to 20 tomorrow because that's what it does when it's spring.
Really?
Yeah, I think for the next until Sunday or Monday, it's gonna be cold again. But I actually did, because we had a couple nice days here. I believe I told you. I'm not sure if I told our listeners, but I am now in the esrog harvesting business, or at least the esrog growing business, and I actually moved my 2 esrog trees back outside for a few days. They're doing great. I have a couple seeds that are sprouted and ready to be planted to add to the pardes. So the Landis esrogim are moving along, inch by inch. Hope to have fruits in about 4 or 5 years. So stay tuned for those. The Cleveland grown Landis esrogim coming to you soon. Pre-orders are being accepted. So move them outside because the weather's nice. Ordered my Pesach wine from kosherwine.com. But unlike most people who order from kosherwine.com, I order from kosherwine.com because the 650 bottles of Rashi wine are sometimes hard to find here in Cleveland. So, it's like the joke's kind of on them because kosherwine.com gives free shipping for a case. And I do a case that costs all of like $70. So anyhow, what are you up to, Rabbi Spiro?
Landis, you are gaming the system. That's what I decided. You are just gaming the system.
I'm within the system. But speaking about gaming the system, I'm also excited because the ACC tournament has started. And as you know, I'm an ACC basketball fan. Georgia Tech got the double bye. They were the 4th seed. That means they don't play till tomorrow. The winner of the Clemson University of Miami game that's going on right now, I believe. And I'm sorry, Rabbi Spiro. I'm sorry that Pitt already lost. I'm sure that's who you're pulling for in the ACC. Pitt.
That's Pittsburgh. It's far from Philadelphia.
But it's Pennsylvania, at least. That's the only Pennsylvania team in the ACC. So
why isn't Villanova in the ACC?
No, Villanova's not in the ACC. Never was in the ACC. I don't even think they're a team anymore, Rabbi Spiro. So that just shows where you're holding.
Basketball. I don't know. I'm not holding in that silly at all.
The ACC is much different than it was when you and I were kids, and you were a kid before I was a kid. So it was definitely different. I mean, Maryland's not even in the ACC anymore. Maryland was like, a famous ACC team for years, and they dropped out. However you do that. But anyways, a lot to keep us excited. But really, what I'm most excited about is the Shabbos. I will be in Norfolk, Virginia. Now, I assume you can assume while I will be in Norfolk, Virginia, right?
That's where your son is learning.
My son's learning, and he, Be'ezras Hashem, is making his first siyum on a Masechta. He has been learning Makos with his Rebbe outside of Seder. So he's very excited about that. We're going in for the siyum. It's going to be a sushi and pizza siyum in Norfolk, Virginia, which is not so easy to pull off. I'll let you know, but that's what we're doing. And it was going to be in Norfolk, Virginia, Motzei Shabbos, Saturday night. Feel free to join us. And that's what's going on with me, Rabbi Spiro. Just moving along inch by inch, getting excited for Pesach. Getting geared up, just thinking, started pounding my way through the Masifta Haggadah. As long as I do at least 238 pages a day, I'll finish the whole Haggadah before Pesach. So very excited about that. And I don't know. Give me something. Give me a V'yakol Pekudei Vort. Give me a Pesach Vort. Tell me what's going on in Yeshiva. Enlighten me with what's going on in the world.
So It's interesting. The other day in Yeshiva, we were having a debate about the Ritzcha D'Oraisa, right? That people get excited when they learn, right? And is that a good thing that people get so excited when they learn? They get so heated up when they learn. Is it not a good thing? We know that today, especially like in America, for example, the politics are there's such bad feelings. So anyone even discussing politics becomes people. They hate each other, sadly, through politics. So the question is it good to get heated up in learning Torah? So it is. The Gemara discusses that then the Maral has a lengthy discussion, the difference between Bavel and Eretz Yisrael. That in Eretz Yisrael, they did not get so heated up. And if you look at Talmud Yerushalmi, it's actually shorter than Bavli. We had less discussions on the Mishnayos. However, the Bavli, Bavel, extremely heated up. And the Maral said this is a good thing, obviously, because it depends on the value. I mean, there's some people who, their life, the most important thing in their life was between Trump and Biden, right? It was so, and we know, we really, to me, it's like there's certain, if you look at the Sefardim, there's a certain exercise, a person should vote, should show his Akar Satayv, the country it's from, but there's exercise in futility. Hashem runs the world, and Hashem runs the world based on our actions, but not on our actions of voting, on whether we're good or bad. So the whole thing, I think, was so silly that people get so hyped up. I'm always pro third party candidates. I voted for Merlin Miller this time.
I thought you voted for the guy who's running for mayor of New York, Gang. What's his name?
The Gang. He didn't run for. I was already mad he didn't run for president.
Yeah,
but $1,000 a month, man. How can I not vote for that guy?
What do you mean you're getting it from Biden at this point? I mean, like, come on, the $1.9 trillion stimulus package just passed, and all I can say is inflation. Like, come on. If you're smart, you know you're doing your 1.9 trillion. Oh, sorry, 1.9 trillion. You're 14, whatever. You're 1,400 times 2 times. How many depends you have at home now? How many are you getting? But anyways, if you're smart, you know what you're gonna do. What?
Baseball cards.
Or Bitcoin, right? You have something that is not as subject to the inflation that is bound to happen with a 1.9 trillion government bill passing. So, anyways, we don't get into politics here. So, but you remind me of an amazing idea that we shared last night in the 10 Steps to the New You program. We had Rabbi Benjamin Friedman as our guest, and we talked about Emunah, about the topic of faith. And I quoted your story that you once shared here about the response as to Emunah B'tachon, that classmate of yours gave about how Emunah is to believe and B'tachon is to taka believe, or whatever it was. But Rabbi Friedman shared a beautiful word from Emunah V'Deos, from Emunah B'tachon of the Chazon Ish, that the Chazon Ish writes over there that he never had anxiety in his entire life. You understand? I mean, like, amazing idea. Like that's. I mean, Halvai, we should even come 1% of that madrega. But the idea is that when we have true emunah, that the Ribono Shel Olam runs the world, that there's a plan in the world, that we're in the process of a plan, and we don't always understand the plan. Then you don't have anxiety. You have to do a shtadlus in the ways that we think makes the most sense. But ultimately, we need to have emunah that the way things play out is the way the Ribono Shel Olam wants, is the way that the Almighty wants them to run out. And that's very much lesson of Pesach, very much lesson of Purim, very much the lesson of the season, Rabbi Spiro. So
what we were saying before is that about getting heated up during arguments. I do think that the Torah has to be valuable enough to us, important enough that we have to be passionate enough about it, that a person does argue about his limud Torah. Again, not excessive argument, and not argument that leads to bad feelings. But I'm talking about argument within the learning of the sugya. I think it's very important to feel passionate about Torah, feel passionate about anything. Today we live in a generation where it's hard to feel passionate about things, right? There's a lot of I feel we're more like, there's just to a certain extent, our addiction to our devices deadens us to feelings.
Addiction to vices or to devices?
Devices.
Oh, okay, got
it. It deadens us to feelings. I know the Lancers are of the opinion that e-cigarettes are as bad as smartphones, right? Which we know is not even close. Not even close. Meaning, e-cigarettes are a bad thing. Even someone who may or may not indulge in them. But at the same time, okay, that's not, that's the jury's still out. Unhealthy, unhealthy. Smartphones erode a person's sense of self, their sense of well-being, their sense of ability to concentrate, their sense of ability to immerse themselves in other things. They can't live in the moment because of the. So yeah, I think that they're the anti-passion. Smartphones are the things in life that's the opposite antithesis, okay, of what passion means. That what doesn't, we're not allowed to be connected to something fully. And our goal in life is we want to be to friends, right? Jerry Seinfeld has a line where he says, imagine you're talking to someone and all of a sudden you pick up a magazine and start reading it while you're talking to the person. People would say that is just the rudest thing they've ever seen, right? How often does it happen with smartphones? You're talking to someone and all of a sudden they're looking down and checking their super important text, which says, LOL.
Yeah, you remember a great story that Mordechai Becher, who will be our guest on 10 Steps to New You this coming week, he told a story about how he was once at a certain store and he was trying to return something and the phone rang at the customer service desk. And the agent or the rep that was helping him out says, excuse me for a moment, I need to get the phone. He goes, why do you need to get the phone? I'm right here. He goes, yeah, but the phone's ringing. He said, yes, but I'm sitting right here and you're helping me and having a conversation with me. Why are you going to the phone? He goes, because the phone's ringing. He said, yes, but I'm right here talking to you and you're working with me right now. Why does the person on the phone come before me? And the person got flustered and said, sir, I'll be right back. And went and picked up the phone. So Rabbi Becher proceeded to pull out his phone and dial the number of the store. And he hears the rep say to the person on the phone, hold on one second, there's someone on the other line. And they click over and Rabbi Becher says, okay, now that I'm on the phone, will you help me? So try that next time, Rabbi Spiro, and let me know how it goes for you.
I'm going to work on it.
But
nowadays, the call will be routed to India for the, your TVS. So I don't know if I'll do that, but yes, the principle is certainly true. But in any case, to the important, and that's what the Seder is about, by the way. It's always, I think it's always sad. There's some people. I had a relative like this who their whole purpose of the Seder was to get to the gefilte fish. And that's always, to me, like such a waste. If we can at least those couple times a year on Pesach, by the Seder, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, allow ourselves to live in the moment and not have our eyes on the clock. Yeah, and I hate eating late at night. I really hate eating late at night more than most things. Can't stand it.
I'm with you on that, by the way.
But Leil Seder, especially in Cleveland, what time does Seder? Matzai 70. I wait 72 minutes. Matzai Shabbos. In 2 weeks from now will probably be realistically, Seder will start 9 o'clock, let's say, something like that. It's very late.
You work ahead. Shkia tonight is about 6:30, so the time will change on Sunday, and that's Rosh Chodesh at 7:30. But it's getting about 2 minutes each day, so probably 7:36. So 2 weeks after that, it's gonna sunset's gonna be about 7:50. So yeah, it ain't starting before 9.
So you're not gonna, and then you remember that means that only at that point can you start getting ready for the Seder.
Right. Yeah.
That's, let's say at 20 minutes. So yeah, it's
20 minutes. That's all it takes in your house. Wow, Rabbi Spiro, you guys got this thing down.
To run. Also, I punch people and I hurt people, so it makes them do things with more alacrity. But so you're starting late at night, but really it's 2 nights a year. Like I once asked someone, I said, from what you've told me, you've no problem sitting down and watching movies 6 hours in a row, right? Okay, so look at the Seder like that. The Seder is watching 6 hours of movies, and then not quite 6 hours even. A Seder, probably 4.5, 5 hours.
Well, I happen to Motzei Shabbos Seders, the Saturday night, first night of Pesach is actually, if I have a choice, and actually if one day I'm on the Sanhedrin, I do have a choice, I will make sure that every Seder falls Motzei Shabbos. I think it's, even though you're right, you have that one difficulty of not being able to set up. It's really, let's say it's 20 minutes. This year's setup time is really 20 minutes. So it's a 20-minute nafkamina, because in a regular year, you can't start before Tzeis. So here you also can't start before Tzeis. But you add in the setup time. So let's say 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is. But on the flip side, you're forced to really be ready a day early because you have Shabbos beforehand. So you don't have that rush and exhaustion leading up to the Seder. And you can get a good nap and you can really rest and relax. The relaxation of Shabbos to help you that you go into the Seder and you're not, I know in my house and my experience, and many people can relate to us, out of the two Siddharim, usually the second one is of better quality. And the reason for that is because the day before the second Seder, the first day of Pesach, everyone gets a nap. There's no running around. There's no rushing last minutes. You're a little more relaxed going into it. You're more rested. So it ends up being a better Seder. So this year, when it falls Moshe Shabbos, both Siddharim have that opportunity, that practical benefit. So I think that far outweighs the delayed start time. Personally, that's my 2 cents for what it's worth. IMHO, which I just found out what that means. You know what that means?
It means, in my humble opinion,
It actually means I mean hats. I don't know. I was trying to think of something funny, but I'm just not quick enough. I have to work on that line. That was a blundered line, Rabbi Spear. I apologize for that. Cut that out of the show. Okay. So, but you sparked an interesting thought that I had recently, because I saw it in a excellent book that I have here. It's I highly recommend this. It's called the Codex Judaica. I showed this to you before, right? It's chronological index.
Oh yeah, by Max Winston, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, it's
cover version.
Matis Cantor.
Right.
Yeah, so it's excellent for a number of reasons. First of all, it's his shtadlus to be accurate in the dating is wonderful. I mean, he really using, for the early years, Seder Olam, and using and cheshboning in the change in the Gregorian calendar, which I have a whole mathematic equation that I use when I need to make that change. You know about the change in the Gregorian calendar, I assume, how in somewhere in between the years 1550 and 1750, depending on which country, they had to take 11 days out of the calendar, or 10 days out of the calendar. So anyways, but he does a wonderful job with the dating. His content is in general spot on. I have some questions about things he writes up here and there, but best of all is his sources. He gives you the sources, and so therefore it's that's classic for me, because if I see something in a sefer and I've never heard it before, the first thing I'm going to do is say, where'd you get this from? And he gives you, and for the most part, gives you sources. So every now and then he writes something interesting that he doesn't give a source for, and then it leaves me my wheels turning. But I was teaching last week in my history class. We got up to the beginning or the development, we'll say, of the Sephardic community, and the Sephardic community is a separate community from the Ashkenazi community, and how that happened, where it came from, and the legend or the story that we always tell is the story of the four captives, about how already from Chor Bais Rishon, Chor Bais Sheni, the Spanish and North African communities were developing, because the Barbanel writes that Nebuchadnezzar was an ally with the Spanish king at his time, so there are already some of the captives from Bais Rishon that were taken to Spain, a small number, and then later on in the slave trade that followed the destruction of the Second Temple, many Jewish slaves were brought to Italy, so they made their way onto Spain. That was really the beginning of the Spanish and North African Jewish community. When the Visigoths became Catholic, the Jews ran from Spain to North Africa, and that's essentially how you get Jews there. But the community doesn't flourish, doesn't really become a matzav, as we would say, until you have yeshivas, because there's one rule of thumb. If you want to build a community, you need institutions of higher Torah learning. And that's the case here in America. You had many communities that had tremendous Talmidei Chachamim, tremendous scholars from Europe who had come over to America, but they didn't build communities. Their rabbis had synagogues. They in some cases had big synagogues, but they really didn't build flourishing communities. And lock, stock, and barrel, it's the communities that didn't build a kollel, build a yeshiva to go along with the community, because that's the time-tested path or method to have a strong communities, have institutes of higher Torah learning. So, we have the legend of the four captives that were captured by pirates and redeemed by the different communities of Spain and North Africa to be the Talmidei Chachamim, to be the scholars, to open yeshivas, and that's how it became that's how these communities became communities. But the question that always remains is that how did this subset develop one set of customs, and this subset develop another set of customs? And by subset, I mean this Sephardic community, the Ashkenazi community. So it's that event of the four captives, these rabbis being taken captive and being ransomed or being redeemed by those communities and staying there to build institutions of higher learning. That's what is always attributed as the watershed moment that made the Sephardic community was, so to speak, separate from the Babylonian community and what became the Ashkenazi community. But why? What happened there? Like, so the first reason is just practical, that these communities, the Sephardic communities, were still reliant on the Babylonian yeshivas before they had their own yeshivas. And so they were writing letters back and forth, and it could take 2 years to get a response. You know, it was like 1 year to get a letter there, 1 year to get a letter back. You think the mail's bad nowadays. That's how it was in those days. So that was one of the reasons they couldn't thrive as a community. Once they have their own yeshivas, they don't need to write letters back and forth. So that was already a break, whereas the rest of the Jewish world was still building on top of the Babylonian yeshivas, as you were speaking about. Now the North African and the Spanish yeshivas were not. They were acting, so to speak, on their own without constant contact with Babylon. So that's practically what happened. But really, he says an interesting point here that I would like to see someone else say it, someone with bigger shoulders. Maybe Rabbi Spira, if you agree with this, then that's big enough shoulders for me. But he writes that one of the differences in the general culture of Sefardim, of Spanish Jews, and Ashkenazim, of German Jews, that's what the words mean, is that once you had that break in reliance on Babylon, the process of Shaila and Tshuva, the process of negotiating a Shaila in the Sephardic community, became much less reliant on Misora and much more reliant on the conclusion that the Talmidei Chachamim came to from the Gemara on their own. And if you think about it, and I think this is accurate, that is a difference if you look in like the Tshuvas of Rav Yosef versus the Tshuvas of Rav Moshe, right? There's the Dagesh on Misora. Where is it? Now, I'm not saying, God forbid, Rav Yosef doesn't care about Misora. Of course he cares about Misora, but where's the Dagesh? How much does Misora play in? And that's what he writes, is that what happened was the four captives came from Italy, and the method of learning in Italy was much more of an analytical method, less again from the Gemara. They had the Gemara and they had the different works of the Sefardim and the Gaonim, but it was less reliant on, in other words, the Misora of how to learn, not the customs, but the Misora of how to learn. They were less reliant on, and so as they went to establish the yeshivas in North Africa, Rabbi Fassi, Rabbeinu Hananel, etc., that they took that Italian approach. So what was the chiddush to me is that the Sephardic approach is an Italian approach in origin, and it comes from a less, again, not that the Misora is not important. I don't want to be accused of saying that, but the Dagesh, the emphasis on Misora is not where it is in the Ashkenazi communities. What do you have to say about that, Rabbi Spear? And how does that play into what you were saying before about the excitement of Babylonian yeshivas?
I don't know if that theory is true or not. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. Ramesha, by the way, himself was a tremendous Baal Machadish. So to what degree did he rely on Misora? I'm not sure. I don't. I mean,
I think about it in part, I guess, with my own personal Misora, because my Rebbe, Rav Yossi Berger Shlita, is what I would call a Misorist. In other words, Misora plays a very, very, very strong role in his psak. And I'll give you a perfect example. I once spoke to him after learning the sugi of Yashin, which is, again, timely right now. We're coming up to Yashin season, or at least the season when people don't have to rely on Yashin anymore. Now, what's Yashin? There's a law in the Torah that you cannot eat the grain of this year's crop until after Pesach, right? Until the Korban Omer has either been brought or the first day of Pesach ends, so that the time period of the bringing of the Korban Omer has already happened, and so it doesn't. So nowadays, for practical purposes, the new crop of grain is not permissible until the second day of Pesach. Now that is L'Kuli Alma, according to everybody, applies in the land of Israel, and it's a machlokes. It's a dispute if it applies outside the land of Israel. And if you learn the sugya, if you really delve into the sugya from the Gemara through the Shulchan Aruch, through Torah Shulchan Aruch, the normal play, the normal stop, so to speak. So Gemara Rishonim, Torah Beis Yosef, right, and Torah Beis Yosef, and Torah Bach Beis Yosef, and then on to the Shulchan Aruch and the Notes that came the Shulchan Aruch. It doesn't look like a lot of wiggle room to not rely to not.
Well, you have the Ramah, the fake of the Ramah.
Right. So yeah, the Bach and the Ramah is where it comes from. But again, it's I'm just saying, in the surface level of learning in those places,
Right,
it's scary at best, right? And I called Rabbi Berger once. I said, I just went through the sugi of Yashin. Why are we not makpid on Yashin? Because he's not makpid on Yashin, right? He does not. Right? He says Yashin doesn't apply outside the land of Israel. And he said two things to me. He said, first of all, I know it's scary on the daf, so to speak, on the blot, but one step off, it's not as scary. He said there's a lot more in the Ashkenazi poskim to rely upon. But he told me a great story, and this is in this story he showed me a lot of his just Velton, Shang, and Psak. He told me a story from the Satmarav, how it's always kind of funny that Hasidim aren't into Yashin. Like Hasidim typically are into every chumrah in the book, right? Any chumrah they get their eyes on or their hands on, they observe every stringency they can find.
Regarding food, yeah, regarding food.
Regarding food, for sure. Right. Definitely not regarding like tefillah bismano and things like that, but definitely right in regards to food. That the general approach of Hasidim is to be very stringent. Pesach, they have all kinds of okay, you might make me edit this word out if I say it. All kinds of made up chumras on Pesach. Okay, Gebrux isn't made up. It has a. Okay, we'll get there in a minute. But Yashin, like no Hasidim are makpid on Yashin. So someone once asked the Satmarav this question, like Hasidim are very into stringencies and kashrus. Why aren't we makpid on Yashin? To which the Satmarav responded, Rav Yelish responded that we didn't do that in Europe. End of the story, right? In other words, our Misora was, the Yashin wasn't created in America. Now, the problem of Yashin was created maybe in America, right?
They used to use older grains, so it wasn't generally such a problem. Only recent.
Right. Import, export, and all this stuff, right? But he said that our Misora is that, in Chutz La'aretz, you're not makpid on Yashin. And that's what Ray Berger said. So anyhow, we'll throw this out to the crowd if anyone has any information on this. I don't know if Rabbi Cantor, I don't know who he is. I should probably write him an email or something because he doesn't bring a source for that. And it seems like it does seem like a little bit of a chiddush to me. I sort of, you're saying you don't hear so much even philosophically that a difference in sort of Sephardic and Ashkenazic approach to halacha?
I know there's definitely a difference. I'm just saying I don't
know that it's that. Right. Yeah. I'm also not sure. And I'd like to be, if I was better versed in shalas and shuvas in general, maybe I'd have more of an opinion. But anyhow, so that just reminds me of the fire, the Brennan learning from Bavel in general, and how that was a good thing. And that's our style. Look, that's just another offshoot thought, and this is very much in your line of work. And I'm curious how you deal with this. And we talked about this a little bit with Rabbi Gershenfeld a few episodes ago, but that one of the challenges we have in our chinuch today and the education of our children is that our yeshiva system, the Volozhiner yeshiva, or it's based on the Volozhiner yeshiva, right? We've looked back to Lithuanian yeshiva, which is all based on the Volozhiner yeshiva, and we sometimes forget the fact that was an elitist system. That was not a system meant for every man, so to speak, and every student. So does that need to be reassessed? And I think your yeshiva, in many ways, has looked at that, and again, very much based on the Volozhiner Mahalach. But you've looked at it and you've tweaked it for when for where it's necessary for the type of bachur.
Every generation is different. In certain generations, there was the idea of the Yirah Shamayim, the fear of heaven, permeated the streets. And then it stopped being like that. I think before, that you could make a big break, a line between pre-World War I and post-World War I, at least in Europe. There was a massive difference. Pre-World War I thing, I'm not saying there weren't divergent groups, there weren't breakoffs, but it wasn't so strong. After World War I, when the whole Kahila structure was broken down, it was very chaotic. So I think times had to change, and for sure for America. So yeah, it wasn't. I don't think it was necessary for every buffer to go to yeshiva in Europe. I don't think it was necessary. Today, every buffer must go to yeshiva. Every single Jewish male.
That I'm not arguing with you. That I'm not arguing with you.
Must go to yeshiva.
No, 100%.
When we opened our yeshiva, there were some people who gave us a hard time, and one of the reasons was, well, we're going to encourage guys who wouldn't be learning full time, who should be learning full time, not learn full time. It's not happened ever. We've been around 10 years. It's never, ever happened. There's never been a buffer who was going to learn full-time and came to us. Never. Right. I believe in full-time learning for those who it's good for them. And I believe there should be options for everybody. So yeah, the yeshiva system has definitely changed. And the Gedolim we spoke to, when we opened the yeshiva, were very, very, very behind this idea for that reason, that every buffer, and nowadays, there's many yeshivas like ours in Lakewood and Brooklyn.
Right, right.
Eretz
Rabbi
Yisrael.
Smith, the point that I was focusing on more was not that every bachur needs to go to yeshiva. Therefore, we have to make yeshivas for all types of bachrim. Because I agree, obviously, with that 100,000%. If you can agree with things 100,000%, but I meant as far as our derech halimud, as our process in
Right.
yeshiva.
Yes, that's obviously, it's I believe in the level of Siyata D'Shmaya and the fact, that always, when I was a Bach, people, Rav Shach would write letters. Why is everyone learning so slow? And, criticize definitely. But I just want to say back to the discussion of passion. I think that relates to the Seder. I just want to make that clear juxtaposition between the Seder and general learning. To be passionate by the Seder. I think it's so important. A person should just now, some guy married to a Reform rabbi, a lady rabbi, he wrote a book on like how to make your Seder interesting. So I didn't see the book, but I saw the questions he asked. He actually asked important questions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I won't agree with any of the answers. I wouldn't buy but I don't want to say the book's name. But
well, while we're on, we'll get. There is a great book by Shimon Apostolf though that does that, and is very well done about the survival guide or something like that, the Seder survival.
But a person, there's so many questions to have by the Seder, and really, all the fundamentals of Emunah are found in the Pesach Seder, all of them,
100%,
mamish, all of them. You just have to, but yeah, if you run through it quickly.
Yeah.
Right. There's a beautiful minute.
10-minute magid. We're gonna do the 10-minute magid. Well, you're a 10-minute idiot, is what you are if you do that. You're missing golden opportunities, golden nuggets sitting around.
Rama brings down a minute to read the Haggadah on Shabbos Haggadah.
Yeah.
Prepare ourselves.
Great minute.
Whenever you're gonna read it, I think the same thing in my head. Wow, it's so short. The Haggadah is really. It's not the whole Haggadah, by the way. It's
magid. Yeah. It's from Salem Lamad to the end, right? That's what he says.
No,
to the end, whatever it is. But
it's not that long.
It takes 5-10 minutes,
But there's so much there. Magid is really just, that's why I always, when I give my answer to people and they say, when did you finish your Seder last night? I always say, I'm still in the middle of it.
Yeah, and again, it's like it's running through the Seder is like if I said, okay, we're gonna go to the National Treasury, National Bank, and you can spend as much time in there, taking as much as you possibly can. Go ahead, and I say, I'm gonna run through really quickly. That's what you're doing.
Like going to the Louvre. You know what the Louvre is?
The Louvre, yeah, that's that like 10-building museum in France where they have the Mona Lisa stamp on the wall.
I really want to go there one day.
I don't.
I enjoy art, but imagine getting to the Louvre and putting on rollerblades.
Yeah.
And going as fast as you can. You'd be like, you're an idiot.
So I'll tell you, my wife and her mother, Alashama, actually basically did that because they had one of these like day in France, a day in Paris, like with a layover coming back from Eretz Yisrael. And so, they decided like they wanted to like maximize that day. So they were like literally running from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. And they get to the Louvre and they said, okay, there's 10 buildings and we have like an hour. What are we going to do? And said, so we're going to just run through to get them to the Mona Lisa and then run back. Whatever we see. And they said, as many people said, it was just so anticlimactic because they didn't know that the Mona Lisa was just a postage stamp until they got there. And
what do you mean by postage stamp?
It's very small. It's like the size of this picture of Moshe Feinstein, Lahavdil, on my wall. It's very, very small. Yeah, I'm not an art guy. I just don't get it. I mean, what I don't get is that guy who like takes a big white canvas and a little bit of orange paint and goes doop, and all of a sudden that's a masterpiece. Like I can do that. Why don't I just like do it and then sell it for $10 million and say it's a masterpiece? What's the difference, Rabbi Spiro? I don't know.
Not that simple, obviously. Yeah.
But the masterpiece I'm working on is my life, and a big piece of that masterpiece is the Seder night, the Leil HaSeder. It is the most auspicious night of the year, and that's why I spend my time leading up to the Seder. It's the one Yom Tov. I mean, it's a machlokas if it even applies to other Yom Tovim, but the concept of Shoshim Yom Kodem L'Chag, that 30 days before a holiday, you have to start preparing for the holiday, and that's the concept of the Shabbos HaGadol drasha, which in earlier years actually was before every Yom Tov. They had a Shabbos HaGadol drasha. It wasn't just Pesach. It was the only times the rabbis spoke. A lot of people
before Pesach and Sukkot, it was.
Pesach and Sukkot and Shavuos. I think there's a Shabbos HaGadol drasha. No. not Shabbos Tshuva Drasha. I'm not talking about Shabbos Tshuva Drasha. I'm talking Shabbos Tshuva Drasha. I'm talking about the Shabbos Gadol Drasha. I'll have to look this up. I forget where I saw this. I saw this in one of the history books, one of the legitimate history books. But anyhow, be it as it may, the idea of prepping, and that's why I spend my time. I mean, I used to pick a new Haggadah every year. But once I discovered the Mesivta Haggadah, there's no need for that because the Mesivta Haggadah has everything in it already from every other Haggadah pretty much. But I go through the Maggid section kind of quickly. I make little marks by the things I like. But I think more importantly is exactly what you said, is the Mesivta Haggadah asks probably 1,000 questions, if at least. So it's sparking the question. So when you get to the Seder, it's like, oh, here's, some great questions here, some great things to think about. I did the one I'll say on the flip side is people are hopefully preparing for the Seder, which, 2.5 weeks away, is the obvious pitfall for so many people is, and especially if you have younger kids, and this goes back to the chinuch of, chinuch of our children, is that the time and energy that they have a nice long magid, but the time and energy is on the 4 questions, the 4 sons.
It's like everything in life. You have to have a balance. You really have to have a balance. You can't, especially when you have a lot of different ages to Seder. So you have to make sure everyone gets in a part where they feel satisfied.
Yeah, right. But
it's like when you take your family to McDonald's, right? So some get a Happy Meal, some just get a double mac and cheese, a Whopper and cheese, right? Does a Whopper come with cheese automatically?
No comment. But I guess my point is, if you're dealing with sophisticated, like you mentioned to me, I think last year, you said, or 2 years ago, I mean, it was at one point how you had your kids with you, your grandkids were asleep for, so for the most part, it was an adult state. I Baruch Hashem, my kids range in age. It's always like it's like you're a referee a little bit between.
So it's different. Yeah, that's what life is. You go through different stages in life. Like right now, we're at a stage of like a more intellectual Seder. Right. This year already, my granddaughter will be there. She just turned 6, and she'll be up for the Seder. It's already a different type of Seder a little bit.
Exactly. And I guess, so when if you have the option of an adult Seder, that make sure to put your focus on Seder Lamad, on the 4 psukim, on the drashos, because that's where it's at. And it's hard. I get it. It's hard. And just, again, a fascinating idea from the Haggadah, from the Mesivta Haggadah, is that you ever notice the difference in the style of the Haggadah from every other work of Chazal you've learned in your life? And that it's every drush, every elucidated idea is a kama shena emar, as opposed to a shena emar. You notice that, right, Spiro?
I don't know.
Yeah, but that's what it is. They're all. It doesn't say shena emar like we're used to in the Gemara. It says what shena emar means, like as it says, and I'll bring you proof. Kama shena emar. Right, so the Mesivta said, I forget who he quotes it from, but it's because it's not trying to bring you just a proof. It's trying to bring you an opening up, a proof that opens up the discussion. Like we say, like it says, not exactly how it says it, like it says. So, and that's
never heard it before. That's a great horror.
I'm excited for the Seder just thinking about it. It's just such an exciting time of year. It's such a great time of year. And look, I'm one of those weird people that actually I enjoy Pesach cleaning. I have to admit it, I do. Because in theory, I would like to keep my house spotless all year long.
I'll give you my address. You can stop by later.
In theory, I like decluttering. Like in the Landis house, we have a policy: when in doubt, throw it out. Right? That's our policy with Pesach cleaning. We'll get rid of all. Your wife, what?
My wife's policy too. She actually threw me out one year.
Oh yeah.
But I made my way back from the garbage dump.
Anyhow, I'm just getting so psyched up for it, thinking about it.
Happy, good. I got to tell you something, and we have to end at this point, but I want to tell you the truth. As in, we used to have a Russian guy in my shul in Buffalo, and he would say, "If you happy, I happy," and that's how that's where it's at.
I like that, Rabbi Spear. If you're happy, I'm happy. It's I agree. To each his own, and it's just it's an exciting time. It's an auspicious time. But if you only take one lesson from this episode, it's a lesson that we can't say often enough. It is an extremely important lesson in life that the best things in life come to those who prepare. right? You can't ever appreciate anything without the prep, without the time that goes into it. And the prep this time of year is not just the cleaning and the cooking and the shopping and et cetera. That's all important. I don't want to downplay that. I don't want to downplay your wife's fascination with all the different types of charosas she can make. And she makes different cultured charosas every year. This year, I hear she's making a nice Swahili charosas. I don't want to take that.
This year's a Guatemalan charosas.
Guatemalan. Does it have like red hot chili peppers in it? No, anyhow, but take the time, take 5 minutes, get a Haggadah that you like in either English or in Hebrew or in Yiddish or in, again, Swahili. If you're a Swahili speaker, get one that you can understand, you can relate to, that you can prepare. And just, again, not that you're looking for things to necessarily say over the Seder. That's not what you don't need to make notes to get ready for the Seder. Like the Yeshiva guy that comes with a stack of notes this high and says, I think we need to start with a Chakira from Reb Chaim on Korban Pesach. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying just to open your mind up and to think about and to start preparing and get excited, and your wheels of creativity for the Seder will turn. And
if I could quote my friend Amir Jaffa, he says, if you fail to plan to fail.
Love it. I love it. Beautiful. Right. On that note, I want to wish everyone a beautiful Shabbos, a beautiful week, a beautiful Chodesh Nisan. And don't forget, by the way, I always forget, like every year, like more years than not, I forget to make the Birchas Hailanos, the blessing on blooming trees, which hopefully we'll see.
Cleveland, you're not making
it's hard because they don't bloom till like June, but every now and then you get the opportunity. So keep an eye out for that. And just have an amazing week. And please share this episode with all your friends. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to leave us a positive review. Help us get this word out to the masses.
We have like 4 reviews in total and haven't gotten a new review in 2 years or a year. Why don't people give us reviews?
Really? We only have 4 reviews?
I don't know. You check how many reviews we have.
I'll check when we stop recording. But anyhow, be well, Rabbi Spiro. Look forward to talking to you hopefully next week, and just have a good one.
Welcome to the guest.